The Board of Directors regularly scheduled meeting for Thursday, May 10th or May 13th, excuse me, 2021 via Zoom. I now call the meeting to order. First end is to pledge the flag. Director Gould, could you lead us, please?
That I pledge allegiance
to the flag
of the United States of America and
to
the
the
republic
republic
for which it
stands,
one
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 nation,
nation,
under
under
under God,
indivisible,
with liberty
and
and
justice
justice
for
for all.
Thank you, Director Gould.
You're welcome.
All right, then, the Metro Cable announcement. The open session meeting is videotaped for Cablecast on Metro Cable 14. Replay on Monday, May 17th at 6 p.m. and Friday, May 21st at 2 p.m. on Channel 14. Webcast at www.sacmetrocable.tv. The public opportunity to discuss matters of public interest within district jurisdiction, including items on or not on the agenda. Are there any speakers?
We did not have anybody reach out ahead of time, but Art, can you please unmute everyone and give them the opportunity if they'd so like?
Yes, doing so now. Hello, attendees. You now have the ability to unmute yourselves if they would like to present anything to the board at this time.
All right, and before we get too far down the road, I'd like to welcome Michelle Dahoney, who is going to be our interim board clerk while Ms. Pania is out on maternity leave. Welcome back, Michelle.
Thank you. It's lovely to be here.
All right, then, moving on to consent items. Is there what's your pleasure with the consent items?
I move it.
I second.
We've got a second by Director Clark and a motion by Director Clark and a second by Director Gould.
Mr. Chair, can I say one thing as we move consent?
Please do.
I think it's important for the public to recognize the hundreds of years of institutional experience that are formally being retired and recognized this evening. It's mind-boggling to look at the number of years as I scan through these documents and to think about all the calls and patient contacts and fires and every other public service that these wonderful men and women did. So I just like, as we move through consent, to just call that out and pay particular attention and reverence to all of these folks.
Thank you for making mention of that, Director Gould. We've got a motion and a second. Any questions on the motion? Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Absolutely. Director Gould?
Aye.
Wood?
Aye.
Sheets?
You must be muted.
Oh, I unmuted. Sorry. Aye.
Okay.
There you go.
Director Jones?
Aye.
Director White?
Aye.
Clark?
Aye.
Sailors?
Aye.
Kelly?
Aye.
And Orzali is absent, so motion passes.
We missed roll call, didn't we? Would it be an appropriate time to take roll?
Sure, if you'd like to, absolutely.
I should have called earlier.
I kind of think we just
general
did, didn't we?
We did, yeah.
We did more or less.
That's okay.
That'll
Yeah.
that'll suffice if everybody's in agreement. All right. I was referring to just general roll for the board this evening. All right, so we are dispatched with consent. Moving on to public hearing for the Capitol Fire Facilities fee updates. And Ms. Dahoney, you are going to prompt the individuals that plan to speak on that issue. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, President Kelly, and good evening again, directors. Like President Kelly mentioned, I'm happy to be back, and to all those who haven't met, it's nice to meet you. Michelle Dahoney, I'll be filling in for Melissa while she's on leave. So I wanted to go over just a brief overview of the public hearing for any who have not participated in one before. So we will be hearing the staff presentation and recommendation from Chief Development Officer Jeff Fry. Then the board will have the opportunity to ask questions about the presentation. Then I will call for any individual speaking in support. And then the board will also have the opportunity to ask questions of those individuals if there are any on the call. Then we'll be hearing from individuals speaking in opposition. And again, the board will have the opportunity to ask questions of them as well. Then there is the chance for rebuttal directly from Chief Development Officer Jeff Fry. Again, if we have any speakers on the subject, public input, and then I'll turn it back over to President Kelly for board questions, discussion, and then a motion. So are there any questions with regards to that process before I turn it over to Jeff Fry? Nope. Okay, excellent. So Jeff.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Clerk, and good evening, directors, Chief Harms. As the clerk stated, I'm here to present the update to the Capital Fire Facilities Program, and I'm just going to share my screen here. And we will begin the presentation. Moving right along, just a little bit of background for the board. This program was originally established in 2002. We have periodically done updates in 2005 and 15 as the need arose. The reason for this update has a few purposes. As the board is well aware, land and construction costs have significantly outpaced inflation in the last couple of years. Most notably, we've talked about 68, where we've seen construction costs double and triple in just the last couple of years. And similarly, land costs have exploded as well. We do have some minor updates to the updated master plan. I will take the board through a high level overview of that. And then finally, this update was identified in the board's strategic plan workshop and was noted in there as such, basically mandating staff to keep up with changes in our fee programs, and specifically the impact fee study was identified in that plan. I do want to take a note here, slightly different than our other fee programs. We directly work with the county and the city of Citrus Heights to administer this program on our behalf. And please take note that the county of Sacramento administers the program for the city of Rancho Cordova. So that's an important factor in some of the next steps as we get to that point. So a little bit about the study, to just keep it pretty simple here. It's a nexus study looking at a 20-year planning horizon, essentially 2020 through 2040. And there's 4 basic steps in this study, and I define them here. And I will take you through each one of these pieces. The first one, define level of service. The board had done that in 2010 when they adopted our response standard. We applied that response standard to proposed development, largely master plan communities. We apply demographic data, population densities to determine the level of service. And that effectively is our master plan that we use. For this specifically, the second step for this study is then to catalog all of our existing and future facilities, and then ascertain the value of those facilities. Third step is to establish the existing population and then the population increase. And then finally, that's used to establish a per capita, if you will, the total costs, capital costs, divided by the population growth gives us that cost per capital, and that is applied then to development type to develop the fee schedule. I do want to point out here the big takeaway from this, I'm going to state early, is here in this last statement. Projected revenue is $90.6 million. However, that's only 24% of the estimated costs for our impact fee program. I think there's a couple of factors for that. One is our master plan likely looks past that 20-year window that's contemplated in this document. I would suggest is maybe a 30 or a 40-year plan, but also there are limitations in code, in law, that define how a nexus study and this study is completed. And we are not allowed to impose a higher level of service or standard in growth areas as to what's compared to the service that's being provided today. So there are limitations to what we can charge new growth, and that's reflected here in this cap of $90.6 million. Moving on to the master plan update, just a real high level change. There's not a lot of changes from the 2014 plan. We did update station locations and then revised apparatus and equipment we need to serve true greenfield master plan developments. The big change this time around, I included station expansion and relocation. We've seen a lot of infill growth in the cities of Citrus Heights and North Highlands in that area. We hadn't contemplated that infill growth contributes to population growth, which contributes to call volume increases. And we are now seeing our engine companies and medic companies essentially being too busy in those areas. So we now need to plan for expansion and relocation related to growth as well. I do think this is going to be a trend moving forward with some of the legislation that's passed related to accessory units or granny flats. I do think we'll see this trend moving forward. And then I do want to tie these strategic documents to other identified in the board's plan. The standard of cover, which is a strategic document we're working on for this year, will take the information from the facility condition assessment, this study, and our master plan and identify specific needs, applying the response code. And then finally, that information will be included in our capital improvement plan. We're seeing that as a 2022 document, and that'll identify timing and funding. The CIP is a 5-year document to give the board some reference there. So quick update. This is looking at north areas specific to greenfield developments and station locations. We are recommending moving station 117 to the west to accommodate the future plans there in Alberta. Director Sailors, I will specifically point out for you that this new location gives us better north access to the county line. It's one of the few roads that are planned to cross the county line into the Placer County area and gives us direct access to our part of Placer County there. So I do think that's a notable move. This EA Future East Antelope Station is far off in the future. It's an infill station related to stations 25 and 26 being too busy. So I think this is really out of the planning horizon for this study. Here is all the growth that we're planning. I know this is hard to see, so bear with me here. I know this is all the growth for the south area, quite a bit here. I'm not going to go through it all, but know that growth is currently along the Sunrise Boulevard corridor and the Douglas corridor. 68 location is in the new spot. We are seeing some new construction in the Rio del Oro, which we'll watch for new station location. But my big concern right now is down here in the south part in the Vineyard area with Future 18. Significant growth in that area, 400 lots subdivided early this year. And you will hear reports from me in the future about this station location. And just an overall picture here, this is the 20-year or 40-year outlook with all our existing and future stations. You can see we add battalions. Those are noted with the stars. And this is just a snapshot of what we expect the district to look like moving forward. So with that, I'll move on to the second step in the study, which is cataloging existing and future facilities. And I am briefly going to show you an exhibit from the study. And you should see on your screens here the attachment, which is included in the Nexus study. We spent quite a bit of time cataloging and establishing values for all of our existing stations, and that's reflected in the study. And then the second part in Exhibit B, or Attachment B, is the future facilities. we spent a lot of time creating nuances and breaking out certain costs to get a more accurate fee study that was conservative in nature, but still accomplish the district's needs. We did break out site improvement costs from building costs and other costs, simply because we have a number of stations that are in various phases of development. Some are temporary that need permanent, some are expansion stations, and then some are brand new development. So our approach to these costs were very specific to account for those nuances. I won't go through the entire list for equipment and vehicles. It's quite long, several pages long, but we did go through painstaking detail to make sure all of that is accounted for. And that is summarized here in these numbers. And again, we'll use those numbers for the current existing facilities, add the 20-year horizon costs, and that gives us half of this equation. Second half is focused on population. Pretty straightforward. We know our population today. We know how it's expected to grow. I pulled out these tables to explain those numbers. I do want to point out very specifically the change in employees at 21%. This is a little new for us. And this is relevant in the final fee factor, but just note that we are expecting a higher percentage and increase in employees than we are in our residential citizens as it pertains in growth. And that will be factored in the final calculation. I will show you that in a second. Finally, we apply both of those factors to development type. And you can see that we apply populations per development type. I do want to note the fourth column there. This is, again, related to part of the study. You can see what's called a demand factor. Excuse me. A demand factor which accounts for our call volume. So the consultants did a random sampling of our 2019 calls to see our responses to the different types of development, i.e. residential versus commercial. And I'll just give you an example here. If our makeup in our jurisdiction is 70% residential, 30% commercial, you would expect to see that 30% of our call volume is to commercial properties. In fact, our response to commercial properties was slightly higher. So this demand factor that you see in this column 4 here adjusts for that and slightly bumps up essentially the employees per unit to account for that. So finally, here is the updated impact fee. The relevant information here is the change from the existing fee to future. I would expect this, given all the factors that I alluded to earlier with the changes of costs and in the plan. You can see that the increase for commercial development is higher than residential development because of those two factors I mentioned. I think that may come as a bit of a shock to some of us, but I think with how I explained it, I think it's understandable. I do want to take one quick second here with the proposed increase and go back to the study itself and highlight our consultant team did a comparison of our updated fees to a number of departments in California, just kind of a reality check, if you will. And the most relevant here is Consumnes right down south here in Elk Grove. And you can see that our proposed fees are in line with Consumnes and some of the fees that are being charged here locally. So with that brief overview of the study, I do want to take a second and talk about procedurally what we're doing today and what we will do moving forward. There are various laws pertaining to updates and fee studies. After discussing this with Chief Council Labra, we applied 2 different areas of the government code which pertain to hearings for impact fee studies. The codes are not required to be applied twice. However, in an abundance of transparency, we are using both code sections, and I will explain that here. And I'll refer to Government Code 66018 by the last 2 numbers. 18 is a specific process. We can call it hearing light, if you will, where there's a notification twice, 5 days apart with 1 public hearing. We are using that process tonight. Those not necessarily required. We're doing it to be fully transparent in this update. What we'd like the board to do is pass a resolution tonight acknowledging the work that's been done, acknowledging that it is consistent with board policy and future direction as it pertains to our capital fee studies. And then we'd like to take that study, the updated fee schedule, and the agreement to the county and to the city for final approval. As the land use authority, the county and the city of Citrus Heights are ultimately responsible for this program. So there is another government code section, which I'll refer to the last 2 numbers, 16, which is a higher standard. It's 2 meetings, 2 hearings, and I think there's public notices required with that. We intend to go through this process again at the county and at the city, and essentially ask them to recognize the work that the board has approved and move forward with the administration of the fee study if approved tonight. My intent is to have this effective July 1st and then be subject to the inflation factors that are in the study itself. So as I conclude here, our staff recommendation again is to adopt a resolution, accept the fee study and the schedule, and then authorize the fire chief to engage the county and the city to implement this and go through their processes as well. Madam Clerk, I'll turn this back over to you for questions. I do want to note, you've heard me reference our experts and our consulting team here. Nicole Gassam with MBS has done a lot of work with Metro Fire related to these type of studies and has knowledge of our agency and has put together this document. Also, Joe Colgan from Colgan Consulting is a planning expert and has specific expertise in impact fee studies. I think the 3 of us, Madam Clerk, if the board has any questions, we'd be willing to answer those.
Excellent. Thank you, Jeff. And I would just ask if you can stop sharing your screen. Perfect. Thank you. So directors, are there any questions for Jeff? It looks like President Kelly, you're muted. Yeah.
Are there any questions or comments from board members on the presentation that was just made? Being a public hearing, I have one question. Jeff, you alluded to the fact that this would be presented to the Board of Supervisors as well? Correct. And will you make that presentation at one of their board meetings? I expect so, as the essentially fire experts to the county. I have reached out to my counterparts at both the city of Citrus Heights and the county to start those discussions. And I didn't want to get too far ahead of the board's vote tonight. With the pending approval here, if approved, I will take up those conversations. Okay, apparently we have some hands raised. I don't know who's got their hands raised.
It looks like Director Wood.
All right, then I'll take Director Wood. Hey, instead of
Director
raising
Jones
your
was
hand,
ahead of
speak
me.
up.
Okay,
Who was? I didn't see
We're all
any
at the
hands
same
raised.
meeting. Go ahead.
Right,
I think
somebody
we're in
speak up.
order.
All right. Well, thank you. I just want to say, Jeff, thanks for the work you and your team and consultants did. It's great to see this. I know there's a lot of work that went into it, but it's good that we're in front of this. I don't want to have any more problems with getting stations funded. And it looks like we're well on top of that. So thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, Director Jones.
Thank you, President Kelly. Hey, Mr. Fry, thank you for the postgraduate class in economic development tonight. I can't believe the depth of work that went behind that presentation. I do have a quick question about one of the screen displays you had, where it was over on the fourth column, and it broke down residential for single and multifamily, and then it went into commercial and industrial and some other things. My question is, those numbers, one of them, I think the commercial was a 3.0. Is it the sum of those numbers for industrial, commercial, and whatever the other lines were that contributed to the 74% increase in commercial capital fees?
Along with the demand factor, yes, I will pull up that screen and then I will turn it over to Nicole or Joe to specifically respond to the concern there.
That's not it.
My question is, thank you. We have commercial, office, industrial, institution, other. Is it the sum of those service populations per unit, service pop per unit? That's the rationale for the increase in commercial. Is that correct?
Correct. So
Okay, just wanted to clarify because I have a hunch we'll get some questions about that, and that's perfectly legit and fine. I want to make sure it was clear in my mind. Thank you, Jeff.
I just want to be clear here. These are as Nicole and Joe conducted the study, these were the average density per 1,000 square feet of commercial dwelling that we would see. This factor is higher because of that call volume response factor that was included, recognizing that we respond proportionally more to commercial development than residential. So this is a planner's way, in effect, of adjusting to essentially a one-person standard. It's common in the planning world, and this is the factor here. This fourth column is the factor that's applied to the fee.
Mm-hmm. No, thank you very much. I can't tell you how much I appreciate the detail and the work that went into this. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Director White, you had something to add.
Just a few questions, and I think I probably missed this, but when was our development impact fee last adjusted?
2015.
Okay, and with that, this fee impacts all new development, correct?
And any
Relocation.
any expansion, any addition to an existing facility, any infill development, and any brand new development.
Okay. So with that, since this fee is going to apply to construction that hasn't occurred yet, do you foresee, and given the size of the increase, it's understandable given the time frame and what's occurred in that time frame, but do you see any organized opposition at all to a development impact fee increase out there, or just the standard procedural public comment?
I think there will be opposition. We're all aware of the housing crunch. We're all aware of the market and environment in the construction industry. Certainly this adds to it. I just don't know for all of us here, we have another choice. We're exposed to those same cost increases and mandates by the state. And this is absolutely essential for us to build future fire stations to serve those future developments. So I appreciate industry concerns and public concerns. At this point in time, I don't know that we have another choice.
Okay, just last question. Is there opportunity to have this tied more to an annual inflator, or?
It is. So it is adjusted to an annual inflation.
Mm-hmm.
On occasion, market conditions outpace inflation. Yeah. And I think that's the environment we find ourselves in today.
Yeah, I would agree. Thank you. Appreciate your time and appreciate the depth of analysis in this study.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else that has anything to add? Seeing no further, Madam Clerk, does that conclude this item?
So I'll go ahead. I'm just going to ask for any individuals who might want to speak on this item. So Art, could you please unmute everybody again?
And then after that, we need a motion. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah. Once I turn it back over to you, yeah, if there's any additional questions, then we can motion at that time. We're all good, Art?
Working on it's going through the list
Oh,
here.
sorry for that.
All right, attendees, you have the ability to unmute yourselves if there's anything you'd like to present to the board at this time. Thank you.
Excellent. So any individuals speaking in support of this matter? Okay.
Hey there.
And
Got one quick comment. This is Mike Kozlowski. I'm the city council in Folsom.
Okay.
I have personal reasons to be curious, but it seems like you have an excellent plan prepared by staff there and should press ahead.
excellent.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. And then any questions for Mr. Kozlowski? Okay, any individuals speaking in opposition? Okay. And is there anybody else who would like to mention anything as far as public input goes? All right, President Kelly, I'm going to turn it back over to you for any further questions, discussion, and the motion.
All right. I would entertain a motion to accept the capital fire facilities fee schedule for the new construction and development within the district.
Mr. Chair, I so move. This is Director Jones.
Thank you,
Second.
Director.
Second,
We have,
Director.
we have a motion by Director Jones and a second by Director Clark. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Director Gould.
Aye.
Director Orzali is absent. Director Wood.
Aye.
Sheets.
Aye.
Jones.
Aye.
White.
Aye.
Clark.
Aye.
Sailors.
Aye.
Kelly.
Aye.
Motion passes.
I would also entertain a motion that would authorize the fire chief to engage the County of Sacramento and the City of Citrus Heights to implement and administer the district's updated capital fire facilities fee.
Mr. Chair, I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Director Wood and a second by Director Jones. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Director Gould.
Still aye.
Orzali is absent. Wood.
Aye.
Sheets.
Aye.
Jones.
Aye.
White.
Aye.
Clark.
Aye.
Sailors.
Aye.
Kelly.
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right. Thank you, directors. Moving on to reports. Did everybody get their questions asked of Mr. Fry, et cetera? Everybody did. Okay, great. Mr. Fry, thank you again. A couple people made note that you had a very nice complete report. Hopefully you have good success if you have to meet with the county, et cetera. This plan is one that is needed by this fire district and agencies like it across the country. People understand that we have mandates to provide service. There must be a way to fund those mandates. All right, thank you again. And moving on to reports. President's report, I have nothing to report. Fire Chief.
Good evening, President Kelly and board members. Few items tonight. First, I'd like to welcome Michelle and thanking her. She has taken on this role along with still doing a number of her other duties that she is having. As you know, a couple of years ago, she stepped in. So Michelle, thank you for coming back and stepping in and helping us through all of our board meetings and all of the things that you do out there. So thank you very much for that.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Jeff Fry, I have learned more about the Capitol Fire facility fees and some of the different methods that were put into being able to come to where we're at tonight. But Jeff, just an outstanding job of connecting, really, if you think about it, our strategic plan that we sat down and looked at. And for me, the ability to lay out a plan, as you saw, Jeff has identified fire stations and growth and stations and our needs coming up. And I always believe that by having the plan, we can change from that plan and adapt to really the growth that we see across the district. But by having that, at least we're all starting at the exact same place. And as Director White had said in 2015, if you just take a snapshot back to where we are today, and then I think this next 5 years, when we look at growth that's going to happen across the district, our ability to provide service and having this in place is absolutely key. So I appreciate Jeff for all of the hard work and really sitting down with me a number of times where we went through numbers and explained really where you're at and keeping with us as we move forward. I also really appreciate from the directors your support on being able to do these things as we move forward to our next steps to the county and with Citrus Heights moving forward. So again, Jeff, great job on that and a great job for really the district and putting us in a great place for moving forward. I'm going to have Chief Tyler Wagaman just talk real quick about a story that came out today about a fireworks bust that was happened really early last week.
Yeah, thank you, Chief, and good evening, directors. As the chief alluded to, as we inch closer to the 4th of July, across the county, we do see an uptick of the use and sale of illegal fireworks. That coupled with incredibly dry conditions this year, we're about 2 months ahead of schedule. Really, it's a makings for a disaster for our constituents and our firefighters. I have to commend our community risk reduction and our fire investigations unit who worked quickly when they were tipped off by an individual who was selling illegal fireworks. They were able to work with the Sacramento County Sheriff's Department, and they worked hand in hand to contact this individual, ultimately arresting him on 2 felony charges and a misdemeanor charge, and pulling over 100 pounds of illegal fireworks off the streets. So I have to commend their work. They did a fantastic job. But likely we will see this very same scenario before the 4th of July, during the 4th of July, and likely after. So really just a word of caution to our constituents. If our investigators come across the use or sale of illegal fireworks, they will take action. Because in essence, we just want our constituents to be safe and have a very festive but injury-free 4th of July. And that's really what we're looking for. We have a great partnership with the Sacramento County Sheriff's Department, and we're going to continue that partnership up and through the 4th of July. So again, kudos to our fire investigations unit for doing an incredible job. Back to you, Chief. Thank you.
Thank you, Tyler. Again, thanks to CRD, the fire investigations, the relationship, and trying to be as proactive as we can with illegal fireworks. So thank you for that. As Tyler mentioned, we're about maybe 2 months ahead of the fire activity. Chief Mitchell will talk more about it, but just this past few weeks with the increased temperature conditions, things drying out, it has been an extremely busy 3 weeks since the last time we were together. As far as myself, a lot of meetings and a lot of things happening across the district. Myself, the other fire chiefs in the region, their board members, and the operations chiefs from the dispatch center had a meeting this past week. We sat down and talked about really a lot of the operations that are happening over there, some of the funding challenges that we are having. I'll reach out to Ty Bailey, who is our assistant chief that is over there, is doing just an outstanding job. If you remember, Tyler was over there. Now Ty Bailey is over there. what I thought was really neat is that our ability from the operations side to be deeply involved more than we'd had in the past at the dispatch center. We're seeing just great outcome on the other side of it. And one of the things that came out of the meeting, which I thought was really good, was a request that we had been leaning towards, but also a request and acceptance from the other side was during the 4th of July on the, I think it was the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, we are looking at assigning command officers into the dispatch center. And so again, not to be a dispatcher, but to be able to have that presence of the operational side, look at the calls, look at the volume, look at what is happening, and be able to make real on-time, on-scene decisions on our dispatching calls, supporting crews from an operational point of view. I think that's just going to be great for us as a region as we move forward with that. So Ty, thank you for those things that you're doing over there. On Monday at Station 114, we had a labor management meeting. We had ourselves, labor, the staffers from Station 114. Station 114 is the station that staffs the district. And we looked at our concerns as far as staffing, browning out companies. We had some challenges in 2020 that rolled over to 2021. Chief Mitchell will talk more about that, but myself and the deputies, along with the leadership from 522, I think whenever we come together like that, we can solve problems as we move forward. We can identify those things. And again, Chief Mitchell will talk more about that. Some reassignment opportunities. The EMS shift captains are both been advertised, or one has been advertised. There are 2 day captains that will be advertised here real soon. Engineer Todd Lanigan retired effective May 1st. Todd had 19 years on the job. I called and wished him well as he moves on. We had a new hire over in the facilities, a technician. His name is Tim Miller. He has just a ton of background experience. And he is just going to be a great team member over there. Unfortunately, because of COVID, I haven't had a chance to meet Tim yet, but I look forward to meeting him real soon. Some of the meetings that we attended was that we finished up our Chiefs forums. There were 7 sessions in total. We completed those in April and the 1st of May. The response back from the membership has been just very positive. It is one of the things that we do twice a year. And our goal to keep transparent, open communications with the members. The 2 of the meetings are now posted online internally, along with a document that is posted about all the talking points and questions that were sent into us. So if somebody missed a meeting, they can go back and watch it. Or if there's a certain thing that they're looking for a talking point, those are also available that are out there. Myself with Director Wood, Director Jones and staff had our 2x2 meeting with Rancho Cordova. We talked about response stats, the mobile integrated health community annual or community report, a number of other updates. I'll let the directors talk more about that as we move forward. Completed the California and the IFC Metro Fire Chief conference calls. I had an opportunity yesterday morning to meet with County Supervisor Rich Desmond. Rich and I had coffee and just really talked about it, just a number of issues across the district. He has, in his first part here, has been just a great supporter of Metro Fire with his background in public safety as a CHP officer. He really understands kind of our side of it, and really, I think, is going to be a great supporter for us for the next 4 years over there. And lastly, at last night's South Placer Fire District, during public comment, I talked to the board and spoke about our interest in forming a study committee. If there was an opportunity for South Placer and Metro to work together in moving forward. They could not comment in that meeting, but it was asked to be put on the next agenda for a study, possibility of a study committee being formed for moving forward with South Placer and Metro Fire. That ends my portion of the report, unless anybody has a question for me.
Does anybody have anything to ask the chief? Seeing no questions for the chief, is there a what are we looking for?
I'll
Operations
turn it over
report,
to,
Chief.
yeah, Chief Mitchell.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Thanks, President Kelly. Good evening. Good evening, directors, Chief Harms and all. Appreciate the time tonight. Deputy Chief Adam Mitchell of Operations. I got a few items for you. We'll start off first with the EMS division. First off, we have a current academy, a single role paramedic academy that's going on, and it's finishing up their second week there. We have 5 members in that. Everything is going very, very well. So second week, total training time prior to them counting as staffing in our single role program is approximately 6 weeks. So after this week, we'll get another month, and then we'll see them out there in the field. A second item there, our EMS division, as well as Dr. Maynard, who was with us for a year as a UCD fellow, recently partnered with Community Relations. They went down and provided some hands-on training and education to the Sacramento Republic FC, their players, coaches, and staff. And they covered heart health, sidewalk CPR, and the use of automatic external defibrillators. So that was a very successful event. A lot of good feedback on that. Worked with those folks out in the community. So I'm very proud to say we were a part of that. And then thirdly, from EMS, it's called the Sacramento County Domestic Violence and Strangulation Summit. Recently, we were asked to be a presenter at this summit. It's a regional approach in dealing with domestic violence issues, and it's not just the emergency 911 response. They talk about prevention, first responders interactions, and recognizing signs, first EMS providers and care, hospital care, and then really at the end of it, follow up for being able to provide more resources to folks that are victims of that crime to be able to break the chain, if you will. So our folks participated in that. It was a very well-attended event, multi-jurisdictional, a lot of awareness that was raised there. And we're working on doing a training presentation for screening tools for our providers. And then eventually with Dr. Mackey, we'll be following up with a video and the fire department connection. So very positive in that regard. I'm moving over to training. We currently are ongoing training with the new Seek thermal imaging cameras for every riding position in the district. We've seen a lot of success there. And by next week, by the end of business next Thursday, I'm happy to say that every riding position in the district will have received that training, and we will be fully operational 100% throughout the district and all of our fire engines, trucks, and ambulances with those cameras. So that's a really good goal, a really good thing to have out there and fully rolled out. I know the funding mechanisms was a long time coming, working with our partners in UASI. So to get there that's a good hilltop to get to. And then on the special operations front, I know we talked about our transition to fire season and peak staffing. We're still slated to reach peak staffing by May 15th this weekend. However, because of the fuel conditions that we're seeing that are as dry as we would normally see them in the first part or middle part of July, we've seen some pretty active incidents out there. And so even though we're not doing daily staffing of our helicopter and our bulldozer yet, we've utilized them on a number of incidents through special call internal to our district, but also with our regional partners. And then with that, I'd like to mention back on April 27th, we had a pretty momentous occasion for Metro Fire and Air Operations. They were up on a training flight and they were requested to respond. They were in the area of Aerojet Battalion 14, responded to the incident and did some water drops. What's special about that incident is that is the first time in the history of Metro Fire's Air Operations program, it was an all Metro Fire trained crew. The pilot was Captain Bryce Mitchell. And then we had James Doyle and firefighter Covington as the crew. So that's a pretty big deal for us. All Metro Fire trained, successful. We've had a number of incidents since then that they've flown as well, but I thought that was a pretty good note to share with you all. Statistics, I know we've had 3 weeks worth of calls. We're at 6,135 incidents since our last report. We've had 32 building fires in the county that we've responded to be part of. And then 13 of those were Metro Fire jurisdiction incidents for structure fire. So if you average that out over a week, that is an increase in activity as well. Our busiest engine company, no surprise, is Engine 53. And then our busiest medic company over this period was Medic 101. And then I'll finish up. Chief Harms mentioned our joint labor management meeting that we held this past Monday at Station 114 was very well attended by a number of members, including executive staff, labor, 522 representatives. Vice President McGoldrick was there. And then we had a number of the staffers that are actually out there doing the staffing day by day. We mentioned about COVID and some of the challenges that you're all aware of and being able to staff our stations over that time, but we continue to see the trend as we get out of the pandemic restrictions here about challenges with being able to backfill and put firefighters in our stations to make sure we're maintaining that service delivery is number one. So we looked at combined data from January 1st and recognized that there's some trends out there that we need to address. And so during this meeting, we identified a number of action items for us to move forward on and roll out to get some proactive measures in place as we move towards the heart of fire season and vacation season over summer to be able to make sure our stations are fully staffed, providing that service as our number one priority. A lot of good discussion occurred. Like I said, we came up with a lot of individual action items. It's a comprehensive approach. It goes from day assignments and making sure that we're fully using our folks efficiently in the correct ranks, putting them back in position to be able to staff fire stations where necessary, from leave usage and entry and some processes in place to make sure that we're looking at all those things to do our best at putting as many mitigations in place going through the busy season and keeping our station staffed. So the details of all that, I know right now labor management is jointly looking at what that plan looks like. There's a group that worked all week this week on putting the final plan together. And then by next week, we will have that plan finalized. And then I know Vice President McGoldrick and Chief Harms will be doing a video, and we will roll that plan out next week finalized. And then we will begin that process starting May 24th. And we'll take that all the way through the end of the year and make sure that we're evaluating the benchmarks and that it is having the desired effect of staffing our stations full time. So more details to come on that once we get that out there. But I would like to say a big thank you. I know Vice President McGoldrick is on for the collaborative effort between us and 522 on working through those challenges and coming up with a good comprehensive plan. So that's it from me. Into my report. I'm happy to take any questions there is. If I'll turn it back over to you, President Kelly.
Does anybody have any questions of Chief Mitchell? Seeing none, thank you for your report. Chief.
It looks like Director White has his hand raised.
You got to pipe in there, Director White. Go ahead, Director White.
Michelle, I think that's been up since the
before. Okay, so
the
perfect
hearing presentation. So
okay, thank you again, Chief White. Anything else, Chief Harms? Move on to
good.
Okay. Move on to Firefighters Local 522 Vice President McGoldrick.
Good evening, President Kelly and Board of Directors. You've heard most of this already tonight. We are having some significant staffing issues. I would just like to reassure you that our goal is to be 100% staffed. This is not a problem isolated to Metro Fire. This is not only regional, but statewide and industry-wide. I think we came up with some options that will work in the short term. I think remonitoring and reevaluating constantly is going to be key to success. A few other things I wanted to bring up. I really need to thank Dustin Rodriguez, working with the Deferred Comp Committee. He brought to our attention the need for a 529 plan, and I need to thank the administration for helping us move that forward so we can prepare our young folks with a success plan for children's education plans. So that's a good thing. Also, very happy to hear that Nationwide is going to be moving forward with our deferred comp program. I've been through under the umbrella of 4 or 5 in my career path, and Nationwide has worked out very well, and it's a great option for our employees. And that is all I have tonight, unless you have any questions. Oh, I forgot one thing. The BC Academy is happening next week. I just wanted to wish good luck to all the BC candidates that are moving forward in their career. Thank you.
No, Nationwide is on your side, Mike.
It is. It's on my side. I can tell you that.
Pardon me. All right, moving on to the executive committee. Executive committee has not met. Moving on to the Communications Center JPA. Chief Wagaman.
Good evening again, President Kelly, Directors, Fire Chief Harms, Tyler Wagaman, Deputy Chief Support Services, speaking on behalf of the Dispatch Board, which we last met on May 11th. During that meeting, we did approve an update to our purchasing and procurement policy. So thank you to Aaron Castleberry for making that note for the comm center. We wanted to make sure that we were better in alignment to receive hopefully some future SHISH-GAP funding to help fund some of our software needs. The Academy is doing well. Academy 21-1, they did graduate 5, and they're entering their 3rd week into call taker training. So a big congratulations to the 5 new dispatchers. And we already have another Academy scheduled, Academy 21-2, slated to start with 4 recruits in August. So a lot of moving parts over at the comm center. As Chief Harms alluded to, Chief Bailey is doing an incredible job over there, pushing that agency forward. I want to talk about statistics just for a moment, and it really ties into Chief Mitchell's report and the increase in call volume. When I looked at some recent stats, which were April, and these are phone calls coming in and out of the comm center, they broke a record in April, had a total of 40,277 phone calls. So I had to pull out my calculator and do some math because I wanted to see how many calls they were taking. And what I came up with was 0.93 calls per minute. That's in a 24-hour period. In other words, the phone never stops ringing. It is a busy, busy comm center in a very busy place, and we can continue to get busier each and every day. So we're going to continue the hiring. We're going to continue to look at technologies that can help us overcome the increased call volume to make sure that we continue to meet the call for duty as people call 911, they need our services. That concludes my report, and our board's going to meet again on June 8th. Thank you.
Chief Wagaman, thank you for your report. Moving on to the California Fire and Rescue Training JPA. Chief Harms.
Good evening again, directors. Training JPA met on June 17th. The executive director report was about a little bit about the training opportunities that were out there and being delivered. But a challenge with building security over at Gold Canal is that they've had a number of break-ins that have happened over there, and they're working on some security issues that they're having. He also talked about a review of the payroll, OT usage, and some control mechanisms that they have implemented over there as far as payroll goes. The budget report in the 3rd quarter was at 81%. That is on track of where they expected to be. They expect to end the year on budget. And as far as training in the 3rd quarter, they had 294 students while still maintaining all COVID restrictions. They offered 17 courses, had a revenue of about $93,000 and expenses of about $72,000. In the 4th quarter, they have 25 courses that are on the books. And for 2021, right now, they have 82 courses that are scheduled for that period going forward. That ends my report for the training JPA.
All right, Chief. And on June 17th, you have another meeting.
Oh, so I don't know when we had our meeting. It was this week sometime.
That's all right. I put you all on alert right now. June 17th is another Metro Fire
meeting on
meeting.
June 17th.
And I probably won't be here anyways. It's my birthday, that's why. Send cards and letters, thank you. Moving on to the Finance and Audit Committee. Director Orzali is absent. Can anybody provide that report? Director Wood.
Yeah, thank you. Our next, we haven't met since we last reported out at the end of April. Our next meeting will be May 27th at a time to be determined, either 5 or 5:30.
Perfect, thank you. Policy Committee, Director Gould.
No report.
All right, thank you. Board members, questions and comments. We have closed session. Shall we dispatch of it now? Shaking his head.
Let people go home.
All right. Board member questions and comments. Let's start. Let me get that cheat sheet I got. Forget all your names. Only been hanging out with you for 15 plus years. All right. Let's start with Director White.
Thank you, President Kelly. I actually have no report, just a comment. Appreciate the work that's being done and the depth of analysis that was put into the development impact fee study. So thank you.
All right. Thank you, sir. Director Jones.
Thank you, President Kelly. I have no further comments tonight. Thank you.
All right. Director Gould.
No comments.
All right. Director Sheets.
Good evening. Thank you, President Kelly. I wanted to thank everyone for their presentations tonight. I'm also really pleased to hear that staffing challenges are being addressed. Best wishes and good luck to the battalion chief test. Really glad and pleased to hear about the Air Ops crew, and thank you for their service. If we can, I'd like to observe a moment of silence for Jimmy N., who's the Stockton Police Department, Stockton police officer who lost his life. And that's all I have.
Absolutely. Moving on to Director Wood.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have nothing, no report tonight.
All right, Director Clark.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, first of all, I would like to welcome Michelle Dehoney back for her service while our board clerk is taking care of her or getting ready to have that new child. Congratulations to all the guys that just retired. And I thank Director or Chief Development Officer Fry for his work. I mean, boy, I tell you, that thing was detailed. And there's a lot of information there, a lot of good information. And I want to thank him and the consultants for their hard work. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
All right. Director Sailors.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would just like to say thank you to Jeff Fry for the wonderful report that he did. And I'm glad to hear that Station 117 will be moving out of their Butler building someday soon. Thank you, and that is all.
Thank you. All right. I would like to recognize all the retirees. And as Director Gould so eloquently puts it, hundreds of years walking out the door. I hope that they all enjoy the retirement that they've earned. Okay, moving on to closed session. Hopefully everybody has the link to that, and we will see you in a few minutes during closed session.
Director Kelly, can we do the moment of silence?
Oh, do the moment of silence,
Oh,
sure.
yeah.
Moment of silence for Jimmy N at this point in time.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.